Let's bring on the king energy. Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. Today we are discussing the masculine archetypes as seen through a unlikely character. Yes, we're breaking down Joe Pesci and My Cousin Vinny. If you're new to my channel, I have been doing these masculine feminine energies film breakdowns. I have a lot of videos discussing masculine and feminine energies in more detail, but a brief overview. Masculine and feminine energies are energies that live within all of us, but we all have a core energy. That's the energy that we're most ourselves in. And very often that lines up with our gender, but it doesn't have to. We can also be in wounded or healed versions of those energies. And each of those energies, masculine and feminine, have archetypes within them. And we have all of those archetypes within us. We can have healed and wounded versions of those archetypes. And there's usually some archetypes that we feel more comfortable in than others, but we can tap into any of them whenever we need to. I have a video breaking down the feminine archetypes, and I actually used Elle Woods from Legally Blonde as an example because she is such an amazing embodiment of all the feminine archetypes throughout the film. And I was looking for a film to discuss the masculine archetypes, and I fully intended to do a much more manly type film, but to be honest, I don't watch a lot of those. And I was keeping my eye out for different movies, and for some reason, My Cousin Vinny kept coming to me. And it was, I didn't see it at first, but then I rewatched the movie and I was like, yep, this is the movie that I have to use. I honestly love this movie so much because Marissa Tomei's character in this film is possibly one of my favorite film characters in history. She plays Mona Lisa Vito, who is Vinny's girlfriend, and I just love them. I mean, they're crazy, but I love them. And their dynamic is such a great example of masculine and feminine polarities in relationships that I'm actually going to do a separate video showing some really specific examples of lessons we can learn from them, because yes, we can learn a lot from their relationship. So be sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video. In this video, I'm going to focus on Vinny, played by Joe Pesci, and we're going to examine the masculine archetypes. Yes, I'm going to be talking about Joe Pesci as the height of masculinity. If you want more information about the masculine archetypes and where I got my information about them, I highly recommend this book. This is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore. I kind of just gave away what the archetypes are, but we're going to talk about them. But if you really want to delve deep into the masculine archetypes, highly recommend this book. It's interesting, he does use some film examples in this book to talk about the archetypes, but they always seem to be film examples, not all the time, but in most cases, of wounded versions of the masculine archetypes, and so it was a little bit more challenging to find a film that had healed versions. I'm gonna do a future video, I think, on the wounded versions of some of these archetypes and of the feminine archetypes. I have a video planned for that. But I kind of want to focus a little bit more on the healthy aspects of the masculine archetypes. So let's talk about My Cousin Vinny. My Cousin Vinny is a movie about an unlikely lawyer, really, which is ironic because the more I thought about it, the more I was like, it's kind of the male version of Legally Blonde. But Vincent LaGuardia Gambini travels from New York, if it isn't obvious he's from New York, down to Alabama to help bail out his cousin and his cousin's best friend who wrongfully got accused of murder. So the fact that Vinny would just jump in a car and drive down from New York down to Alabama, which is not a short drive, mind you, and would just drop everything and do that for his family, shows that he has a really big heart. And I think that's one of the reasons why we fall in love with him throughout this film, because like even when he is wounded, even when he's maybe not being the nicest guy, even when he's in his ego, he's still so lovable. And I think that that's one of the reasons why people love this film, you know, is because he is such a lovable character and he obviously has a big heart. Now, if you notice in the beginning of the film, Vinny has a very, it's not childlike, but in some ways it is a bit childlike. It's he's got a very sort of adolescent demeanor, view of the world. He moves a lot. He's not very focused. He's not taking anything really too seriously. It's actually interesting because many people believe, and they do mention in this book as well, and in many cultures they believe that men are not, like, nature doesn't initiate men into manhood. They don't initiate them from boyhood into manhood. That's something that males need to be initiated into. And it usually needs to happen from strong masculine leaders. And if that doesn't happen, then men tend to stay in this sort of boyhood adolescence until it happens, which could be for the rest of their life. I actually mentioned this in my Cat on a Hot Tin Roof breakdown, that is something that happened in that film. And that's where you tend to get these sort of like man children. It's usually because they haven't either had any male leader who has initiated them into manhood, or they've had inadequate or poor male leaders and that haven't done a very good job of initiating them into manhood. And there's actually, I mean, honestly, I think that's rampant, and I think you could actually connect that problem to a huge number of problems that we have in our society. And I'm actually not going to get into all the reasons why I think that is in this video, but I am going to do a future video as to why I think, like, what some of the reasons are that I think that we have that dynamic. I know a lot of people are probably going to say feminism, but I'm not going to get into that in this particular video. But we'll just say that it is rampant, and that's why we get a lot of grown men who are actually acting more like children.
You were serious about that?
And Vinny definitely does have aspects of that in the beginning of the film. Again, he doesn't really take things too seriously. He's moving all the time. He's got his feet up on the desk when he meets the judge. Like, he doesn't really fully grasp the seriousness of the situation. You also find out that he has been engaged for 10 years.
We agreed to get married as soon as you won your first case. Meanwhile, 10 years later, my niece, the daughter of my sister, is getting married. My biological clock is ticking like this, and the way this case is going, I ain't never getting married.
And he is obviously very devoted to her, and he cares about her very much. But the fact that they've been engaged for 10 years and he hasn't actually married her, and it's said in the film too that, like, he said he would marry her when he won his first case. That's actually a very common thing with the masculine, is the masculine will not settle down and actually commit to a relationship, like take the relationship to the next level of commitment, until they themselves feel like they have reached a certain level of, whether it be success or their masculinity or a purpose in life, which is one of the reasons why you see a lot of men who just can't take a relationship to the next level. I know there's a lot of people that make the argument that, like, well, if it's the right woman, then he'll step up. And oftentimes, being in the right relationship with the right woman might give him the motivation to step up. Obviously, being with the right woman can help any man. I mean, there's been so many studies that a man being with the right partner can increase his success infinitely. However, he still needs to take that step to fulfill his purpose. And if he doesn't actually get to that point of fulfilling his purpose, he's not going to, he's obviously taken a step to committing that he wants to marry Lisa. He's, you know, proposed to her, they're engaged, but he can't take that next step to marriage until he proves to himself that he is capable of really stepping into his king energy, which we're going to get to a little bit later. But it's a very common thing where women sit around and wait for a guy, and it's like, well, he needs to be able to step into that level of the man that he feels like he needs to be in order to make that commitment. I'm not saying that women should sit around and wait for 10 years for a man to do that. However, that's usually one of the reasons why you see relationships where the man just can't move things to the next level, is because he hasn't stepped into the man that he needs to be in order to make that level of commitment. And as women, we can't make a man do that. He has to find that within himself, and typically with the help of other men. Now, Vinny does get some initiation into this process as he's going along. I mean, some of it is obviously fear. Some of it is Lisa does an amazing job of really shattering his ego, which I'm going to talk about in another video. But Vinny does have some important male leaders that actually force him into this. One we don't actually meet, but we hear about. There's a judge that we find out was actually the one who encouraged Vinny to go to law school and encouraged him throughout law school and was there at his graduation. And you can tell that that is a very father figure energy. It was someone who believed in him to get him to a certain point, but you get the impression that he was a very nurturing energy, which is great, and it's definitely needed, but he didn't appear to be like a crack the whip kind of an initiation that needed him to break through to the next level. It was that encouragement to get him so far. So then we meet Judge Malloy, who is seen as sort of the enemy, so to speak. I mean, you could even see him as sort of a bad guy, but in the end of the day, he really is that, like, crack the whip. Like, he's the old school Southern judge. He wants things done his way. He is not going to let Vinny get away with anything just because he's from a big city of New York is kind of his motivation. But in reality, he is really that strong masculine energy that puts Vinny through the initiations that he needs to go through in order to step into that next level of masculinity. It's like Vinny screws up, the judge just throws him in jail. Just keeps happening over and over and over again. Notice in the beginning, Vinny has kind of like a whatever kind of attitude, then it starts to frustrate him, and then by the last time he throws him in jail, he's just kind of like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna make the best of it. And it shows that he has been strengthened every single time that he's had to go through this initiation. And the fact that this judge has been so hard on him, it's really, he really has been a mentor, even though he appeared to be a rather cruel one. But he was that energy of, I'm gonna force you to step up, even though I don't think he really knew that that's what he was doing. He was doing it because he thought that Vinny was scamming him, which he kind of was. But it was that energy of, I'm not going to be easy on you. I'm going to make you work for this. And it forced Vinny to then step up and step into the man that he fully could be. I would also say that the prosecutor in this film, although he's kind of a friendly guy, and we don't really, he's not really a bad guy, he's not really a good guy, he just kind of is. But you can definitely tell that Vinny a lot of times observes him and uses him as someone to emulate in several points in the film. So he kind of serves a little bit too as a lead by example kind of a male figure. These are all examples of different men throughout the film that actually helped Vinny step into that next level of masculinity that he needed to step into. And it got him out of that sort of like little boy adolescent phase to then step into the masculine archetypes that he was fully capable of. So the first archetype we're going to talk about is the lover. The lover energy is actually seen in both the masculine and the feminine archetypes. Of the masculine archetypes, it is the most feminine of all of them. The lover archetype can involve sexual pleasures, but it is not exclusively that. It actually involves the sensual pleasures of life, the joy of life. It focuses on the heart of love, on compassion, of all different types of love, whether it be erotic love, whether it be, you know, friendship, brotherly love. Really, the lover is all about love, really. It's about heart-opened love. And Vinny has a huge heart throughout this whole film. I mean, you can't question that at all. He really is all heart. He's clearly loving and devoted to his girlfriend, and they have a very fiery, passionate relationship, but they also have a really, you can tell, like deep love and commitment for each other. He also has so much, obviously, love for family, and he cares so much about what happens to his cousin and his friend, who are really just kids in that point. And Vinny has this real strong love of them and what happens to them, and caring and wanting to protect them. And the protection also involves the warrior energy, which we'll get to in a minute, but it comes from a place of love. The lover energy is about life force energy. It's that passion from within for everything, which Vinny obviously has a lot of passion for what he's doing. And the lover energy is sexual energy, which is creative energy. It's life force energy. It's part of what gives him his creative thinking. And Vinny shows a lot of creative energy at the end of the film. He has to be quick on his feet. He has to come up with different arguments. He's got a lot of quick on his feet creative energy, which all comes from that life force energy of creativity. And Vinny really embodies the lover energy throughout the entire film. I mean, that is the reason why we love him so much. Next, we have the magician archetype. Now, there are some references to literal magic tricks in this movie, which we'll get to in a minute, but the magician energy is actually about intuition. It's about seeing, it's about knowledge, like inner knowledge. People believe it's ancestral knowledge. For some, it could mean magic, manifestations, any kind of things that are connected to the universe that are kind of like greater than what we can explain. It would involve spirituality, anything like that. It's also the bullshit detector, which I gotta tell ya, Vinny is the ultimate bullshit detector. And they actually do make reference several times in the film to actual magic tricks. There's a story that Vinny's cousin tells about when Vinny basically was watching a magic show and like called out everything that the magician was doing. Vinny is the ultimate bullshit detector, you can tell. And he actually does a little card trick when he's explaining how he's going to win the case, about it all being an illusion, and you know how nothing puts the wool over his eyes.
Nobody, I mean nobody, pulls the wool over the eyes of a Gambini, especially this one.
That intuition that's pure magician energy. It's something he's always had, and you can tell he has that from the very beginning of the film, but it's something you can tell he really grows into his confidence in as the film goes on. Next, we have the warrior energy. The warrior energy is all about courage. It's about strength. It is about standing up for what you believe in. It is about protecting those that you love. It's warrior energy right there. I mean, it is all about protection, which is a huge part of masculine energy in general. It's protecting the ones you care about. Vinny shows this throughout the film. The first time we see this is actually when we find out that his girlfriend Lisa actually was trying to hustle money and she got stiffed, and Vinny immediately is like, okay, I'm stepping in. And when he basically stands up to this guy who is basically screwed over his girlfriend out of some money, the fact that he so fearlessly stands up to him and is using, again, he's not even just using, although at one point in the film he does use physical strength to stand up to this guy, but he's using his intellect. Like, he's using all of what he has in order to stand up to this guy. It's not a matter of, okay, this guy's bigger than me, I don't care. It's like, you know what, this guy hurt someone that I care about, I'm gonna step in and I'm gonna use all of the traits and tools and skills at my disposal to defeat this guy, which in reality is really Vinny's intelligence and his intuition. And throughout this film, Vinny is basically trying to protect his cousin and his best friend to keep them from having to go to jail for a murder that they didn't commit. So really what he's fighting for throughout this entire film is really to save these two kids essentially from the death penalty, really. And he, at the beginning of the film, isn't really fully up for the job. So this kind of fearless courage that he went into this with is pure warrior energy. He is willing to fight for those he loves and fight for those he cares about. He does some of it from a place of ego, like trying to prove to himself that he can. But in reality, he's got such a big heart that he really wants to fight for those that he loves and cares about. Finally, we have the king. Now, king energy really embodies all of these archetypes together, and it's when the masculine really steps into using all that he has to really step into leadership. But the thing is, the king leads with his heart, which is the lover energy. He leads with his intuition and his intelligence, which is his magician energy. And he leads with courage, which is his warrior energy. The thing is that king energy needs to lead with integrity, and he needs to lead with his heart, which Vinny obviously does, and he really steps into that level of confidence in his ability by the end of the film. You see it even in his mannerisms. He is much more serious. He dresses much more professionally. Of course, he was pressured into doing that, but it really does give him a more king-like demeanor, putting on a suit. It gives him more authority. It gives him more confidence. It puts him into that role. The thing about king energy, it is not about having to be better than everybody else, and it is not about having authority over everybody else. It's having the confidence to lead, but also a big part of it is knowing the skills of the people in your family community, the people that you are leading, and knowing their skills and helping them to fully embody themselves and their skills to let them step up. It's not about overshadowing, which I actually mentioned in the Legally Blonde video with Emmett and how he helped let Elle shine. It's about using the resources of the people around you in order to really lift everybody up, not about being like, I have all these skills, I'm better than everybody else, because that's just leading from your ego. It's about knowing the skills of the people around you and then being able to help them to shine fully so that like everybody gets lifted up. It's not about like, I need to be the leader and leave everyone else behind. It's about guiding everybody into becoming their best self. Vinny does this really beautifully at the end of the film. Vinny basically discovers some evidence. I'm going to talk about the end of the film, so spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. I highly recommend you do watch this movie. Even if you've already seen it, watch it again after this video so that you can pick up on the things that I'm pointing out, because it's just a really fun movie. But at the end of the movie, Vinny basically discovers a piece of evidence that he knows will actually get the case thrown out. He can't just get up and tell the judge what the evidence is. He knows that. He also knows his girlfriend Lisa so well that he knows that she is going to be able to figure out what the evidence is, because she has such an extensive knowledge of cars. And a lot of people kind of side-eye her when he says that she knows a lot about cars because she doesn't look like she knows a lot about cars. which is, you know, a lot of people are sexist that way, but that's fine. I mean, I don't know that much about cars, so I can't really judge, but whatever. So he basically drags Lisa into the courtroom to get her to be a witness on the stand, because he knows that she's going to be able to figure it out based on the evidence that he shows her. And the thing is, throughout the film, she has been like, can I help, can I help, can I help? And he hasn't been willing to ask for her help. But at the end of the film, he realizes that, you know what? She can help me here, and he's willing to set his ego aside of like this, I don't want her help, I don't want anybody's help, I want to do this on my own. And he's like, you know what? I know somebody who has this skill, who can now step in, and I can use their knowledge and let them shine. And there's a moment that I really love in there when they actually, the prosecutor is questioning Lisa on the stand, and Vinny's kind of just like watch this.
Watch this.
Because Chevy didn't make a 327 in 55. The 327 didn't come out till 62. And it wasn't offered in the Bel Air with the 4-barrel carb till 64. However, in 1964, the correct ignition timing would be 4 degrees before top dead center.
Well.
Kind of like, yeah, see what my fiance can do. Like that kind of thing. Like that pride in her, and of course at the end when he gives her a smile because he's so proud of her, that's that king energy. That's like, you know what? I don't need to go it alone. I don't need to do this alone. I know of people around me, of the people who do believe in me, who do support me, who are part of my world. I can use their skills to create a better outcome than I could have on my own. That's massive king energy. It's like not having that ego of being like, I'm in charge, I'm the leader, I'm the only one that knows what's going on, and being able to be like, hey, we can all use the skills that we have and use our strengths. And actually, I mean, it's part of what a leader does, is a leader helps the people he's leading use their strengths to fully come into their own and to make everybody better. So those were the masculine archetypes, and I'm actually going to do another video on Vinny and Lisa's relationship because they actually have some really interesting dynamics that I really want to point out to you. So be sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video. Highly recommend you watch this movie, especially if you haven't seen it, so you get to see some of the masculine archetypes in action. I'm actually going to do, I have a video planned on the wounded feminine archetypes, and I'll look for some examples of wounded masculine archetypes, and maybe we'll do a video on those. If you have any movie suggestions, TV shows, anything like that, let me know. I'll leave a comment in the comment section below. I'd love to hear from you. I love your suggestions. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure you subscribe to my channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.